This is CBC Here and Now.
The province wants to remove the word savages from the description in the coat of arms.
As much as I think it's right, the thing to do, I think that he should have started with things that really would make a difference.
But one Indigenous leader in this province says there's much bigger issues than the 400-year-old coat of arms language.
Well, checking a line of thunderstorms right now, moving through Lab West, sparking a severe thunderstorm watch. Those storms are going to head east as we head through the night. I'll get into all those details.
The Paralympics are on the go right now, and the Special Olympics are coming up next. And these two have something special going on for that.
I had to keep it a secret for a whole year. It was so hard.
That's coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Jeremy Eaton.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, paramedics in central Newfoundland say they are at a breaking point. They say they're constantly on call, they're short-staffed and under-resourced. In Gander today, paramedics with Central Health were protesting. They say there's a critical shortage of on-duty ambulances and paramedic staff. They worry about their own physical and mental health, as well as those who may have to wait a long time for an ambulance. The president of the union says in an emergency, every second counts.
If you're in Grand Falls, you'll pull up and you'll see two ambulances parked in front of the hospitals sometimes when they're not responding. What most people don't realize, that only one of those ambulances in each facility is fully staffed with ambulances on site. One pulled away from here now. That unit is staffed. The second staff is on standby. They have to leave their home, respond to get the second truck or the ambulance unit to respond to the emergency. And as one of the signs I've seen says, seconds count.
Well, we spoke with Jerry Earle about today's protest and the ambulance issues he says span right across the province. That conversation continues in about 25 minutes.
It's all part of the province's move towards reconciliation, removing the word savages from the descriptions of its coat of arms. The province also wants to incorporate Labrador into the text. But as Here Now's Colleen Connors reports, some Indigenous leaders say there are more pressing issues.
The province's 400-year-old coat of arms is getting a slight update. The Newfoundland and Labrador government has decided to change the official description. For centuries, these figures have been referred to as two savages. Instead, they will be listed as Beothic. The province is also including Labrador into the text. The government is looking for your input on these decisions through an online survey that I did myself. It only takes a few minutes and it basically asks two questions. Are you Indigenous, and do you agree or disagree with removing the word savages from the coat of arms description? The province says changing the wording and consulting the public is all part of ongoing review of cultural symbols, observances, and monuments.
When I look, I actually have it here on my computer. When I look at these two individuals that's on our coat of arms, you know, I feel empowered by them. Even though the description of savages is derogatory, when I look at them, I see strong hunters and gatherers, providers of their families. That's who the Indigenous people are. That's who the
MHA Leela Evans views the coat of arms every day. She thinks it's a positive move to do away with the word savages and add Labrador, but says there are much more pressing actions.
Reconciliation is about making sure that individuals and families are looked after. And changing coat of arms and changing out statues is very valuable from the symbol point of view. But if reconciliation and real change is done to help Indigenous people, we need to get at the root of food insecurity. We need to get at the root of why low-income families have trouble heating their houses. And what a lot of the province don't realize is that on the North Coast, we pay the highest rate for electricity.
The province says changing the coat of arms description is a step towards reconciliation and making the province more inclusive. Premier Andrew Furey issued a statement late this afternoon saying plans are back on after a stop due to the pandemic to apologize to former Indigenous students of residential schools, their families, and communities.
And when we look at how the Inuit and the Innu have been treated, they haven't been treated fairly. And something I think right now, if the Premier tried to step up and apologize after these things that have unfolded, by not being transparent and by not consulting, I don't think his apology would be very well received amongst the Indigenous people.
And as for the language around the province's coat of arms, the public has until September 17th to weigh in on what they think about the changes. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
It's nice to be recognized for doing something, but the main important thing is my dad can still work at all, and he's still enjoying his life.
18 people from the province are being awarded for their heroic, life-saving actions. You can hear more on that coming up on Here and Now.
Well, I don't know about you, but today was pretty much the perfect day if you were out in the sunshine for sure. Temperatures today a little cooler on the cool side, 17 degrees in St. John's. But as you head towards the west coast, those temperatures much nicer. 25 in Deer Lake today and 24 in Corner Brook. When you look at that humidity, we said goodbye to that today. We do have a little bit in the air, but nothing that's really noticeable. But as we head through the day tomorrow, it does look like some of that humidity is going to make a return. We'll feel a little bit muggy into the afternoon, and then we'll say goodbye to that for the weekend. We're looking at a cool weekend at this point. But before we get there, all of that rain that's going to move in and bring some of that muggy conditions is prompting some rainfall warnings and special weather statements for parts of Labrador. A significant amount of rain on the way through the night tonight and into tomorrow, and that risk of thunderstorms as well. But I'll get into all those details when I come back.
Katarina Roxon finished 4th place at the women's 100-meter breaststroke event in Tokyo this morning.
That's good, not getting off to the best of starts, but she's got such a good underwater. Roxon too is using the underwater to the best of her ability.
The Paralympian from Kippens previously won gold for the same event at the Rio Games in 2016. Leonard Roxon, her father and coach, says his daughter hasn't been sleeping very well, and that likely took a toll. Still, he says that Roxon gave it her best effort.
I know for a fact she will be very disappointed with this race, but that's part of life. You handle the wins and the losses with grace, and you move on. It's just a race.
Now, I love that coat, by the way. Roxon says it's a difficult pill to swallow, not being by his daughter's side in Tokyo. Katarina Roxon is set to compete again on Saturday.
While the Paralympics are in full force, Special Olympics athletes are now preparing for their big shot. The World Winter Games is hosted by Russia this January, and one local athlete is set to receive a special honor. Here Now's Henrika Wilhelm has more.
These two aren't just training for any run. They'll carry the torch at the Special Olympics World Winter Games in Russia. Athlete Andrew Hines was nominated by Special Olympics NL.
I immediately thought of Andrew because every team could use a man like Andrew Hines on that team. I actually found out that he had been chosen on the plane on my way to Thunder Bay to the National Games last year. So we were super excited about it.
A big honor. Hines is one of only 10 athletes acting as torchbearers, and he's the only one from Canada.
I can't wait to go. My mother's reaction was insane. As she was at work, she ran from every room in her work. I think she was bawling, crying. My sister was crying. Everyone else that knew was crying, and it was a great feeling to hear something like that.
And he won't be alone on his journey to Russia. Hines will be joined by a MUN campus enforcement officer who is part of the law enforcement torch run that promotes the Special Olympics.
I've been involved now for the past 15 plus years. Goosebumps just talking about it because it's such a huge event. It's like going, to the Olympics, which just happened. I mean, it's a huge event. It's exciting for everyone. It's, for us to be going there and represent Newfoundland and Labrador. I mean, to me, that's one of my biggest accomplishments so far.
The World Winter Games take place from January 22nd to 28th. Hines and Wells will fly to Moscow and carry the torch more than 800 kilometers further east to Kazan.
We're also hoping that this will raise awareness of our programs as we try to start new clubs in other communities around Newfoundland and Labrador.
When I heard about that, my mind everything just changed. Like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Like, how am I gonna train for this? I had to process everything. It was so cool. I'm hoping that I can represent Newfoundland very well, and my province very proud, and my country very proud.
Both Hines and Wells couldn't be more excited. They will be leaving for Russia in early January for the torch run that begins on January 9th. Henrike Wilhelm, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
To Afghanistan now, where there are reports that at least 12 U.S. service members were killed in today's attack at Kabul airport. According to the Pentagon, a number of Afghans have also died. Canada's Department of Defense says no Canadian service members were hurt in the attack, but it's not yet known if any Canadian civilians were affected. There were two separate explosions in the capital. The first blast shook the area around a key gate into Kabul's main airport. The second explosion went off near a hotel where Western officials have reportedly been staying. There is no word yet if any Canadian civilians were affected. The Department of National Defense has confirmed that all Canadian Armed Forces members are safe and accounted for.
The temporary air bridge that was put in place by the Americans over the past number of weeks allowed us to get out tens of thousands of people as an international community, and Canada will have been able to lift out about 3,700 people. We have taken as much, if not more, advantage of this temporary opportunity than any country, just about any of our allies.
Returning to local news, starting Monday, masks will be mandatory at the College of the North Atlantic. Masks will be required for all students and staff. They can only be removed when people are seated and when physical distancing is possible. Now, at this point, the college says it will not require a COVID vaccine, but that could change depending on the direction of the province's public health guidance. Right now, all CNA facilities are closed to the public. Well, 18 citizens across the province were recognized for their acts of bravery today.
St. John Ambulance hosted their annual Life Saving Awards ceremony at Government House. Here and Now's Meg Roberts has more.
A lawn full of brave individuals who changed the outcome of someone's life. Mike Upshaw and his son Parker both received a St. John Ambulance Life Saving Award. In 2019, Mike Upshaw saved Parker's life after he began choking at breakfast.
Obviously, we jumped up and ran over, and I administered the Heimlich maneuver on him. And when it was all said and done, he approached me and asked me how to do it to himself in case he was there by himself, and how he could do it to other people.
10-year-old Parker was paying attention because 5 months later, Parker saved a classmate who was choking.
I feel very accomplished that I did it. I'm very proud of myself.
Gordon Payne was enjoying a night out at a restaurant in Trinity this past May. He didn't think twice when a man at the table beside him started choking, saving former Premier Paul Davis's life.
I don't remember 2 or 3 thrusts, maybe, abdominal thrusts, and he cleared it. And thank goodness that he did, because I felt that I probably never had a lot of time left before I was probably going to pass out. But I really think about all the times back in my policing career throughout my life, you hear of people found dead in a washroom. They ran to a washroom. I actually thought about going to the washroom because I was embarrassed as to what was happening. And I did have a thought of, I got to get out of here. I don't want people to see me like this. And it's the absolute worst thing that anyone could do.
Logan Hatcher saved the life of his father after their boat collided with a whale, sending him overboard and severely cutting his arm on the propeller.
And as soon as he did surface, you could see the red in his arm flailing all over the place. So as soon as that happened, I jumped off the boat, the front of the boat. The main important thing is my dad can still work at all, and he's still enjoying his life.
Smiles here today from many who are enjoying life, thanks to split-second decisions and second chances. Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, we're tracking a line of thunderstorms moving through Labrador right now. Looks like it's heavy at times, and that is going to head east as we head through the night tonight. I'll get into all those details and have your full forecast when I come back.
Well, time for a look at the weather. Sounds like lots of stuff going on at the moment. I got out really early this morning for a hike in the woods, and it was just gorgeous. It was like a perfect day, like you said earlier.
Yeah, it was. The temperatures were cool today, in the shade, obviously, but if you were in the sunshine, it was beautiful, to my standards anyway.
Me too.
Let's take a look at the daytime highs across the board today, into the teens in that onshore flow there. Twillingate through to St. John's, even Cape Ray, seeing those temperatures between 16 and 17 degrees. And then as you head towards central, temperatures much nicer by the time you get to Badger, 25 degrees, 24 in Corner Brook, and temperatures up across Labrador as well. Lab City, 22 degrees was your daytime high. Now those temperatures have dropped now. We're down to about 15 degrees in Lab City right now, 14 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and we're starting to see those temperatures drop as well for parts of the west coast. And they're going to continue to do so as we head through the evening hours tonight. But that ridge of high pressure is what's bringing in some of that cooler air for the majority of the northeast. And then we've got this area of low pressure just to the west of Labrador right now, and that warm front, which is why we're seeing some of those warmer air, and why we're going to see that warmer air move in through the day tomorrow and get a little muggy as well. So some showers, some cloud cover worked its way in for most of the day today along the west coast. And up across Labrador right now, we're seeing some of that texture in the cloud cover. Now, I don't have any lightning data for northern portions, but you can see just how large that area of thunderstorms is there. And that is going to continue to work its way further east as we head through the evening hours tonight. Now, Environment Canada does have that severe thunderstorm watch in effect right now. Main threats right now, heavy rain. Some of these thunderstorms could produce upwards of 25 millimeters locally in an hour. And then as far as those strong wind gusts are concerned, you're looking at gusts anywhere from 60, maybe even 70 kilometers per hour. And like I said, those storms will work their way east as we head through the evening hours tonight. Now, on top of that, we do have a special weather statement in effect for Happy Valley, Goose Bay through to Cartwright. That's because of that risk of thunderstorms and locally heavy rain with that as well. And then those rainfall warnings in place from Makovic to Rigolette. Now, we are looking at some pretty significant rainfall falling tonight and then through the afternoon tomorrow. Now, the rain will end as the day goes on, but this is the amounts we're talking about. So a good 20 to 40 millimeters for most across Labrador. In those rainfall warning areas, though, you could see in excess of 50, maybe even 60 to 70 millimeters of rain, and that will fall through the night tonight and then into tomorrow morning. So certainly lots of rain. There it is right there on that future tracker. It's going to head towards central Labrador. The risk of thunderstorms for you will be overnight. And then same thing as we get towards coastal Labrador through the night tonight. And even the risk of some thunderstorms for the west coast, southwest, even up through to the northern peninsula. We could see that risk of thunderstorms roll through as we get into the early morning hours. And then some showers along southern Newfoundland as well tonight. So here's your temperatures. Not too bad. 12 degrees for St. John's. Now, as you head towards central, lower-lying areas may see the risk of frost as we see those clear skies and relatively light winds tonight. So you could see that risk of frost if you are in those low-lying areas. Otherwise, temperatures should stay in the teens tonight, and then those winds picking up. 30 to 50 kilometer per hour winds expected. We're going to see that rain continue through most of the day tomorrow. That risk of thunderstorms as well for most of the island. The best chance looks like it'll be through central, but that risk will still continue through the day. Much less rain for the island, though, through the afternoon. And temperatures tomorrow into the teens. So it is going to be muggy tomorrow. You're looking at temperatures 18, 19 degrees, but humidex values into the mid to upper 20s through the afternoon. Those winds out of the south, about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Same thing as far as those showers go. We will see some clearing skies, though, as the day goes on towards the west coast. As that moves on, look at that wind shift. Southwesterlies to westerlies, gusting upwards of about 60 kilometers per hour. Now, for the northern peninsula, pretty much the southeastern portion of Labrador, you're going to see the showers and thunderstorms in the day, and then your winds pick up. You could see gusts upwards of about 80 kilometers per hour into the evening hours, and then temperatures for the rest of Labrador into the teens, and again, clearing skies as that moves off. So that's a look at the start to the weekend forecast. We'll have the full weekend forecast when I come back.
Well, as we heard earlier, paramedics in Central are sounding the alarm. They say more full-time ambulances are needed in the region. Now, they say understaffing can result in slow response times during emergencies. Paramedics held a demonstration in Gander today to call attention to the issue, and the head of their union joins us now. Jerry Earl, can you walk us through what's happening there today?
What's happening here today in Gander, Carol, is that we've come here to stand with the paramedics, not only in Gander, but Grand Falls, Windsor. There's significant issues that's been happening for a long period of time that we've been in discussions on about the availability of fully staffed paramedic units, whether at the James Bake Memorial or the Central Newfoundland Regional Health Authority. Most would not realise, though there's 2 ambulances at each site, that only one of those ambulances are fully staffed, and the second ambulance relies on a call in from home, where the paramedics have to live within 20 minutes of these hospitals. So that delays the response time. We've been talking about this for a long time, and it has to be addressed. Now, yesterday, miraculously, they posted some temporary full-time jobs, but they are just that, temporary full-time, and that's only a band-aid solution that we have to come to a resolution on.
So from your standpoint, what's the solution here?
Clearly, some of the solutions as we talk about, not us just have said this, is not frontline paramedics. We've had reports before that said there are insufficient ambulance units in strategic locations. If you can only imagine here again, there, Central Newfoundland with Trans-Canada, a population approaching 20,000, a single ambulance at the hospital, and the secondary crew responding as standby, that is not appropriate. Looking at what resources need to be in place, and these women and men, these paramedics that go to work every day for us, deserve nothing better, and they know the solutions. They just need the powers that be, Health Community Service Minister, to listen, and we've been saying this for years. But again, we're going to escalate our action now because we've got to get this dealt with. Lives depend on it. The paramedics depend on it. Their health and safety is being affected. We're in a situation where we have multiple paramedics off, physically and mentally injured, and that is never acceptable, and we're not going to accept it. These women and men are the ones that we rely on up every day, and sometimes at the most critical times of our lives, whether a loved one in cardiac arrest, a child, a motor vehicle accident here on this Trans-Canada Highway. When we call upon paramedics, we would hope that they're ready to respond. But it's just that that's not happening in a number of areas, whether it be in the eastern area, red alerts, here in central, red alerts, and that's not acceptable with the frequency that it's occurring. We understand it may be once in a while, but this has happened repeatedly, day over day over day. Just one unit response has to be dealt with.
We've heard from some paramedics who say there have been times when ambulances have been called out of rural areas to help fill the service gap in metro areas. So what kind of stories are you hearing?
Absolutely, because again, you have a situation where we've heard, just recent last night before. It's funny enough, as I leave Gander, we are driving back this afternoon. I'm meeting with paramedics on the East Coast to talk about again and again that situation that's resulting. Because what you just mentioned is what we're relying on now in the eastern area, in the metro region. There are times that they're actually bringing ambulances in from rural communities. What that does to those rural communities, then the ripple effect is they're left without an ambulance, and the people that are waiting at an emergency response are waiting sometimes 15, 20. We heard of an incident where it was in excess of 30 minutes for a response to a serious situation in Conception Bay South, because the ambulance in Conception Bay South was actually in the metro region. So this is not acceptable. The band-aid solutions that they repeatedly come up with are not acceptable, and we're going to be demanding, like I said earlier today, we're done talking. We want to see action. We don't want to see more reports, investigations. We got to get to the root cause and address this. These paramedics, these women and men deserve it, and the citizens of Newfoundland and Labrador deserve an appropriate response when they have an emergency, not waiting extended periods of time.
How concerned should the public be about this? You gave the example of a 30-minute response time in CBS. How worried should people be that if there is an emergency that they'll be able to get an ambulance?
Not to be alarmist, but we all should be concerned. I live myself in paradise. I'm fearful that if I have to pick up, and I've been quite fortunate, I've only ever called for an ambulance to assist me, not personally, but my family once, and it was readily available. But it's a possibility, depending on where you live, there's going to be a delayed response. And it's not happening infrequently, it's happening frequently. And that's what the alarming piece is. We know it's happening. The statistics is there, and the actual occurrence is there that's showing it's happening. But for some reason, Pre-hospital care is not getting the attention it deserves, so we're going to make sure that pre-hospital care gets that due attention and we readily deal with those issues. It's going to be isolated incidents, but we're not talking about isolated incidents here, Carolyn. We're talking about frequent occurrences.
All right, Jerry Earl, I'll let you get back to the protest there in Gander. Thanks so much for speaking with me.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Talking about dollar bills. Your money was a key theme for day 12 of the federal election campaign. Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole promised a new program to support workers in the so-called gig economy.
Our plan will require companies with gig economy workers to make contributions equivalent to CPP and EI premiums into a new portable employee savings account every time they pay their workers.
O'Toole was back in his virtual broadcast studio in Ottawa for today's announcement. He says the money in the employee savings account will be allowed to grow tax-free and can be accessed by the worker when they need it.
We will commit to solving this housing crisis, making sure first-time homebuyers get the help they need to buy their first home, to make sure we get big money out of housing and make sure we invest in building more homes within people's budgets.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh expanded on his party's housing policies today. He says a new Democrat government will double the tax credit to first-time buyers and convert it into a rebate.
After a lifetime of hard work, you shouldn't have to worry about how to make the rent or fill a prescription.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau is pledging more money for seniors. He says if his government is re-elected next month, it will permanently increase the guaranteed income supplement by $500 per year for single seniors and $750 per year for senior couples. Trudeau says the increase would help 2.2 million citizens. Bloc Québécois leader Yves Francois Blanchet, was in Chicoutimi today with representatives of Quebec's forestry industry. He's promoting a plan that would promote the province's lumber business. Blanchet also wants Quebec lumber to be exempt from U.S. tariffs.
I'm not going to lie, I was terrified.
Turning tragedy into triumph. 3 tours in Afghanistan left Patrick Gordon wondering what was the point.
Now he's found a new purpose. A special story from our colleagues in St. John, New Brunswick, just ahead. Afghanistan is taking center stage in Canada's federal election. As we reported earlier, and this is still a developing story, officials say at least 60 Afghans and about a dozen U.S. service members were killed in Kabul today after 2 explosions there. The CBC's David Cochrane is in Ottawa. Here he is telling News Network host Andrew Nichols how the unfolding crisis is impacting the candidates' campaigns.
It certainly played a role, most specifically, I would argue, in the campaign of the Liberals and Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, who is still the Prime Minister of this country and ultimately responsible for Canada's response to this unfolding humanitarian crisis. It intruded into every single news conference last year and made it very difficult for Trudeau to shake off the Prime Minister's sort of mantle and become the Liberal leader and move fully into campaign mode because Kabul was falling on the day he was visiting Mary Simon, the Governor General, to dissolve Parliament and plunge us into this election. And we've gone from the fall of Kabul to essentially the end of the evacuation mission for Canada in the span of the first week and a half of this campaign, and now face what could be a very difficult and perhaps bloody aftermath for a lot of people. Now that Canada's efforts have ended in that country on these relief flights, though Justin Trudeau was asked about this today and said that Canada will remain engaged in Afghanistan and continue to try to help as many people as they can. But it's been very clear, just speaking with senior Liberals and government officials throughout this, that Canada can't do anything there right now without the Americans, and the Americans have called their shot. They are getting out, and then you have issues like are happening today, and it has now become an exercise in political finger-pointing and attacks, specifically today from Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole, releasing a letter that he wrote to the Prime Minister's office several weeks ago, urging action on the rescue, essentially, of people who helped Canada in its mission in that country. And, people can assign the assessment or failure of Canada's efforts on that. It is the middle of an election campaign, and the answer is always going to pivot back in some form or fashion to the failure of Justin Trudeau, as the Conservatives like to describe it. But there is a very uncertain future facing Afghanistan, and it is very unclear at this point in the public commentary as what you could do now that the Americans are pulling out. The backward-looking thing, if you look at O'Toole releasing the letter he sent to the Prime Minister, he is making the case that it should have been in there earlier. They should have gotten rid of these document requirements and the red tape that was slowing things down at the beginning. Maybe they should have gone outside of the perimeter of the airport earlier, like the French did with buses, like the U.S. has done with helicopters. That wasn't done, and that is the argument they're essentially trying to prosecute to some degree.
And that was the CBC's David Cochrane in Ottawa. To St. John, New Brunswick now, where a veteran says his time in Afghanistan left him battling demons he was never trained to confront. Today, he's turned that distress and suffering into action and service for his community. After years of depression and addiction, Patrick Gordon says he's found a new fight.
We don't even understand it here in North America. The average person that's never left North America, you would not understand. You can't be anything other than what they say you are, or you die, period. You can't be a man openly gay there, you die. You know what I mean? You can't be a woman that decides, I'm going to be progressive and run for, no, you die.
To what extent did you think about why you were there?
Oh, during those times, though, as a young man, I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about it. I thought about it like I was answering the call. That was it. I had a duty in my country, like it wasn't my place. I was a corporal, it wasn't my place to question that. I mean, I did sometimes going, are we here doing the right thing? And I felt like we were paving roads. We weren't just there fighting bad guys. There was a whole PRT division that was provincial reconstruction team that was dedicated on building schools and roads and infrastructure. They were doing an amazing job. Like there was paved roads everywhere. Taliban kept putting bombs in culverts and blowing them up, but hey, we'd patch them up right away. I think if we would have continued on that road, we would have been successful. But now when I look back at it, I feel bad. I feel bad for the Afghan people because they are an amazing people. They're strong, proud people, man. They have never let anybody come into their country and tell them how to do it.
Are you watching what's going on now?
It was sad to see. It really was sad to see that the Americans just tend to do that a lot. They tend to go in and stir it up and then pull out, and then it destabilizes the region. And the fact that Canada is dragging their feet to get some of those people out of there, Anybody that served there knows exactly what's going to happen to those people that helped us. They're going to die, period. And probably not really easy deaths either. I lost 158 of my friends. I'm always wary of getting a phone call that another one killed himself from suicide. I have countless friends that have addiction issues and post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and anxiety and have no idea how to help themselves. When I came back in 2008, there was a time where people were calling us baby killers, and like there was zero support from the Canadian public because of the war. There was a lot of civilian casualties, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're fighting a war. My last tour was in 2010, and I left the Canadian military in October 2016, and I was medically discharged. I left the forces, 300 pounds on countless medications. I was arguably an alcoholic, zero coping skills on how to deal with life and everything that I had dealt with up until then. I refused to accept who I'd become. I really hated myself for a long time and who I'd become. I had a young boy come into my life and give me the opportunity to see myself in him and realize that I want to be all the people that failed me growing up. So I had a choice to make: clean myself up, get help, go to therapy, start working towards a better me so I could be there for my son, or not. I chose to serve my country. I chose to go to Afghanistan. And then you can choose whether to wallow in it and not get any better, or you can choose to seek help. You can choose to be a better version of yourself every day. And I choose to be the best version of Pat Gordon I could possibly be for the people around me. Woo, another day in the office. Yeah. Let's go get some bags filled. I feel like humanity right now, especially in St. John, needs a little something to look forward to. We decided we were going to do 50 families a month and give a bag of food to them. We were trying to do something that nobody else is doing. So a lot of the programs in the city are based on, you have to come to us. So we're expecting people with, at the very bottom of the income ladder to try to afford a bus ticket or a cab to go to a food bank and get some food, which they're only allowed to access once a month. So to me, I'm like, all right, let's take all this information and I'm gonna look at it from a tactical standpoint because I'm a soldier and that's what I do. How can I attack this? How can I make this on the offensive? Let's start attacking it, be really offensive on how we're doing this. So I'm like, let's bring the food right to the problem, right to the schools where the kids are at. So that, and Operation Feed St. John was born, and now we'd commit 50 bags of food every month to 50 families in need. Each bag of food has roughly 50 meals. And to date, we've given over close to 15,000 meals away. And we just started in January. Our first delivery was in February. It felt so good. I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can actually do something and I can maybe change where the trajectory of my city's going. Where I am and what I've learned, I believe community is the most important thing in a step forward to living a healthy life. You got to really take a hard look in the mirror and say, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And I'm not defined by Sergeant Pat Gordon. That was a time in my life, but that's not who I am. I'm so much more.
Guess what today is?
Calling all kindergartners. Here and Now is looking for kids who are heading off on their first day of school ever. Ask mom or dad to grab their phone and take a video of you. Tell us your name, where you're from, and why you're excited about starting school.
I'm excited for kindergarten.
Then email that video to nlphotos@cbc.ca, and you could be on TV before the first bell rings.
Well, throughout the summer, we've been bringing you a local series all about music and place.
This week, filmmaker Roger Monder and Shannigannock's Chris Andrews dive into the history of the small fishing community of Bay de Verde and the story behind the traditional Newfoundland song, 30 Days in Jail.
Take a look.
30 days in jail, boys, you knows it's quite a while, especially with a hammer upon a big rock pile. I get up enough rocks in there and never said a word. Build a road from Whitburn right down to Bay de Verde.
Hi, I'm Chris Andrews, and welcome to Bay de Verde, a town with a view, a Newfoundland hub for the fishery, home of some great Newfoundland musicians, and also maybe the home of this great song, 30 Days in Jail.
Build a road from Whitburn right down to Bay de Verde.
Growing up, of course, I knew about the song. I didn't know it. I didn't have the lyrics. My father used to sing a scattered line from it, and I'd always say, well, how's the rest of that going? And we just never knew. It took me a trip to the archives at Mon Folklore Language Archive during my studies at Memorial, and I found a copy of the words. Collected in 1956 by just a researcher, no one from my community. He got it from a gentleman named Leo Keys, who allegedly composed the lyrics. And they were a musical bunch. It's a song allegedly written, by him, right from Bay de Verde. It tells a story of an unfortunate incident that a guy had who ended up in jail, and he's singing about the 30 days in jail he spent there. We fell in love with it just because it's a song from home. So many lines in it. Of course, it mentions Bay de Verde, the road from Whitburn, right down to Bay de Verde. But yeah, it's just one we fell in love with. It was one of many songs written in Bay de Verde about local events.
We learned the song after a show we played in Bay de Verde from Chrissy Keys. He said his grandfather made it up, his father wrote it down, and he sings it.
Bay de Verde is an old community. John Guys travels up and down Conception Bay North. He mentions Bay de Verde. It was called Bay Verde or Bay Vard in the early writings. Green Bay is what we think. It's a corruption of Portuguese and French and English. Settled primarily for the fishery, for its proximity to Baccalieu Island. It was one of the most, fertile fishing grounds in the world. But very, very rough spot. It's out on a peninsula. There's water, ocean on three sides. You can't drive through the place. If you do, you'll get wet. You kind of got to turn around on the wharf and go back the way you came, like a lot of communities. Bay de Verde today is blessed that we have a very large fish processing plant. The population is only about 400 or 500 year-round, but that swells up to almost 1,000 when people come from all over Newfoundland, in fact, all over the world. But, it's seen its share of storms, shipwrecks. D'Iberville burned the place a few times in the 1600s. So here in Newfoundland, communities like Bay de Verde, at least 400 years old. A lot of history, a lot of families, a lot of challenges, a lot of hard times. Men and women from Bay de Verde have gone all over the world to make a living, but it's still home to me.
30 days in jail, boys, you know it's quite a while, especially with a hammer upon a big rock pile. I met up enough rocks in there and never said a word. I built a road from Whitburn right down to Bay de Verde. 30 days in jail, boys, you know it's quite a while, especially with a hammer upon a big rock pile. I met up enough rocks in there and never said a word to build a road from Whitburn right down to Bay de Verde. To build a road from Whitburn right down to Bay de Verde. To build a road from Whitburn right down to Bay de Verde.
it's almost weekend time. Tomorrow's Friday. The week went fairly quickly this week. It
did go fast.
For me,
Very
anyways.
fast this week.
How's the weekend looking?
Well, it's looking a little wet to start. Temperatures certainly cooling down as well as we've been talking about for the past couple of days. Let's take a look at that future tracker. That area of low pressure that is going to move through tomorrow takes its time to get out of here, and that means that showers are going to stick around for the most part through the day on Saturday. We may see a few peaks of sun in the mix, but overall it does look like an unsettled day. As we get into the afternoon, the sunshine looks like it will certainly make an appearance for the west coast as that area of low pressure slowly moves offshore and takes that cloud cover and showers with it. However, it does look like we'll see some lingering showers up across Labrador through the day on Saturday. Eventually we'll see some clearing, and then into Sunday it's still sticking around offshore, so we may see areas in the northeast or anywhere along the coast may see some showers lingering through the day. They may track as far south as in and around Gander at this point through the day on Sunday, but as it moves pretty much right back in, and we'll see some more showers with that one through the afternoon. Otherwise quiet pretty much for the rest of the province. Maybe a few showers up across Lab West as well through the day. But pretty much what's happening is we've got that area of low pressure that will be in play for any area really along the coast. So temperatures on Saturday are going to be quite chilly. So you're going to drop about 10 degrees for parts of the province on Saturday into the 14 to 17 degree range for most of the island. And then that sunshine up across Labrador. Beautiful day in Lab City, 20 degrees as your daytime high, 19 in Nain as well. And then as we get into Sunday, we'll start to see those temperatures rebound. For Happy Valley Goose Bay, same thing for the west coast. Corner Brook back up to 20 degrees, and then same thing for Port aux Basques. However, there's that cloud cover I was talking about and that chance of showers. Also, because we're in that onshore flow, those temperatures will be cooler as well. So hovering somewhere around 14 degrees as your daytime highs. As we get into the beginning of next week, it does look like we're going to see these cooler temperatures stick around. Maybe by Tuesday, we'll start to see those temperatures warm up, 19 degrees, but it does look like it'll be a little bit unsettled at this point. For central and western Newfoundland, your temperatures should be hovering in and around 18 to 20 degrees. Does look like Tuesday will be unsettled, certainly for the west coast with a little bit more cloud cover in play. And then for eastern Labrador, oh yeah, forgot to mention, good thing that's there. That temperature will be falling. So it's 17 degrees tomorrow for Happy Valley Goose Bay, will fall as the day goes on. You'll be sitting in the low teens through the afternoon, but look at that. Nice as far as weather goes, not a whole lot to speak of. And then for western Labrador, some showers will return for the beginning of next week. Wanted to share this photo, swimming hole near Deer Lake. Vanessa Badcock shared that shot with us. Look at that great photo. Thank you for sharing that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Gorgeous.
Great shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that does it for us tonight.
Yes, almost. Before we go, we want to share a really big unveiling that happened at Memorial University. Remember the Rocky Harbor whale?
Carolyn, how could I forget?
You were with the whale, right?
I spent weeks up there. Like, you know, first in Woody Point, the one that rode up Trout River, and then that. Yeah, I spent a long time, but just take a look at this video because it's pretty wicked. So as you can see, this is the blue whale skeleton being hoisted up there inside the new Core Science Building at Memorial University. As you remember, the Royal Ontario Museum stepped in and it paid to flens the whale. That's what it's called when you remove all the flesh from a whale. It's called flensing. I learned that, among many other things. They smell terrible. But anyway, so this is them. This is a group from Trenton, Ontario, I believe. Research Casting International, I think, came in and helped them put it together. So this will hang in the atrium there at the new Core Science Building, and this was the one that washed ashore up in Rocky Harbor. That's not the one that bloated and started. That was the Trout River one. If you may remember those images all over TV. It even landed on Saturday Night Live as part of a skit. But anyways.
Right, I remember that.
But now the university has told me that they want people to come in and see this. So when the building is open, you should probably go take a look. I know I probably will.
It'd be really cool to see. All right, that's it for us, everyone. Thanks so much for being here.
Good night.